Alara Reeves smoothed her formal diplomatic uniform for the fifth time, the sleek gray fabric a stark contrast to the vibrant colors of the Norvathi ship docked alongside the human vessel. 6 months of encrypted communications had led to this moment, humanity's first face-to-face meeting with the warrior species, whose reputation preceded them across 3-star systems. "Ambassador, they're ready for you," her aide Marcus whispered, eyes wide with barely contained excitement. "Their commander himself is coming to greet you." Alara nodded, squaring her shoulders. At 34, she was the youngest senior diplomat in the Terran Alliance, chosen for this mission because of her gift for reading non-human body language and adapting to unfamiliar cultural norms. Yet nothing in her training had prepared her for the sight that greeted her as the airlock doors hissed open. Commander Calix of the Norvathi stood nearly 7 feet tall, his silver-blue skin catching the light with subtle iridescence. His face was almost human in structure. 2 eyes, though they were solid amber without pupils, a strong jawline, and a mouth that curved into what might have been a smile. But it was his torso that caught Alara's attention. Where a human would have a chest and abdomen, Calix's body featured an intricate arrangement of overlapping plates that shifted with every breath, their deep blue centers fatting to translucent edges that revealed glimpses of the powerful musculature beneath. "Ambassador Reeves," his voice resonated with a harmonic quality that the translation devices couldn't quite capture. "I am Commander Calix Vranthal. I welcome you to this historic meeting." Alara extended her hand in the human greeting they'd previously discussed. "Commander Calix, the honor is mine. The Terran Alliance looks forward to establishing peaceful relations with the Norvathi Collective." As Calix's 3-fingered hand enveloped hers, Alara's gaze inadvertently dropped to the fascinating pattern of plates across his chest. They seemed to pulse slightly with what she assumed was his heartbeat, or hearts, if the xenobiology briefings were accurate. She quickly raised her eyes back to his face, but not before noticing how the central plate bore intricate markings unlike the others. Throughout the initial tour of the Norvathi vessel, Alara found her eyes repeatedly drawn to these mesmerizing patterns. Each time, she'd correct herself, focusing on Calix's face or gesturing hands, but inevitably her gaze would wander back. During a pause in their discussion of trade routes, Calix tilted his head, the motion fluid and distinctly non-human. "Ambassador, I notice your eyes keep wandering to my thoracic shields. Is my form that disconcerting to you?" The directness of the question caught Alara off guard. The diplomatic team had warned her that Norvathi valued honesty above all else, even politeness. "Not disconcerting, Commander," she replied carefully. "Rather, fascinating. We've studied your physiology, but seeing the way your shields catch the light and move with your breathing is quite different from reading reports." Calix's mouth curved upward. "Your honesty is appreciated. Many species find our armor unsettling at first encounter." He gestured to the central plate that had caught her attention. "This primary shield developed when I earned my command. Among my people, its complexity reflects one's achievements in battle and leadership." Alara felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I apologize if my observation seemed inappropriate." "Curiosity is not inappropriate, Ambassador," Calix responded, his amber eyes seeming to study her with equal interest. "In fact, I find human facial coloration changes quite fascinating as well." Was that amusement in his tone? Alara couldn't be sure, but the tension in her shoulders eased slightly. Perhaps this mission would be successful after all, if she could keep her eyes where they belonged. 3 days into negotiations, Alara found herself in the Norvathi ship's observation deck, a vast chamber where the boundary between vessel and space seemed to dissolve. Commander Calix stood beside her, his tall form silhouetted against the sweep of stars. "You prefer this to your quarters?" he asked, amber eyes reflecting pinpoints of starlight. "It's easier to think here," Alara admitted. "Something about the vastness helps put our discussions in perspective." The trade negotiations had proven more complex than anticipated. The Norvathi valued strength above all else, which initially seemed at odds with the Terran emphasis on mutual benefit. Yet Alara was discovering nuances to their culture that hadn't been apparent in the intelligence briefings. "Your concept of strength is different from ours," she ventured, watching as Calix's chest plates shifted slightly with his breath. "It's not just physical prowess, is it?" Calix turned toward her, his expression thoughtful. The strongest warrior isn't always the one who can defeat the most opponents. Sometimes strength lies in knowing when not to fight. He gestured to his thoracic shields. Each marking tells a story, not just of battles won, but of conflicts averted through wisdom. Alara found herself leaning closer, genuinely interested. "May I?" she asked, hand hovering near but not touching his central plate. After a moment's hesitation, Calix nodded. "You may." Her fingers traced the air just above the intricate pattern. "This spiral design, what does it represent?" "The renunciation of Galaxy," he explained. "I prevented a planetary bombardment by challenging the fleet admiral to single combat rather than allowing millions to die." Alara's eyes widened. "You risked your life to save an enemy population." "They weren't the enemy," Calix corrected. "Their leaders were. The distinction matters." Later that evening, over a dinner of compatible cuisines, human foods for her and Norvathi delicacies for him, their discussion continued. Alara found herself sharing stories of her own diplomatic missions, the successes and near catastrophes that had shaped her career. "Humans are remarkably expressive," Calix observed, watching her animate a particular tale with gestures. "Your faces change constantly. It's captivating." Alara felt that now familiar heat rise to her cheeks. "Another biological difference. We can't help it." "I didn't say it was unwelcome," Calix replied. His chest plates rippled in a pattern she hadn't seen before, a subtle wave that moved from center outward. "This is an expression of appreciation among my people," he explained, noticing her attention. "Similar, perhaps, to your smile." "I've been studying your shield patterns," Alara confessed. "They seem to shift differently depending on your mood." Calix looked surprised. "Most species never notice. Their eyes are drawn to our shields, yes, but few observe the variations." He leaned forward slightly. "You have an unusual gift for perception, Ambassador Reeves." "Alara," she corrected gently. "I think we've moved beyond titles, don't you?" "Alara," he repeated, the name sounding exotic in his harmonically layered voice. "Then you must call me Calix." As they parted ways for the night, Alara realized something had shifted between them. Like Calix's armor plates, their relationship was reconfiguring itself into something neither of them had anticipated. Something that both excited and terrified her. The emergency alert blared through both ships simultaneously. Alara was halfway to the conference room when she collided with Calix in the corridor. "Border incursion," he explained tersely, chest plates contracted tightly against his body, a defensive posture she now recognized. "A rogue Norvathi faction has attacked a Terran outpost." Alara's blood ran cold. "Casualties?" "Unknown, but if it's who I suspect, they won't distinguish between military and civilian targets." The next 12 hours dissolved into a blur of crisis management. The fragile trust between their delegations threatened to shatter as accusations flew. Several Terran officers demanded immediate withdrawal from negotiations. Among the Norvathi, a vocal contingent argued for preemptive military action against the rogue faction, an approach that could easily escalate into full-scale war. Through it all, Alara and Calix worked in remarkable synchrony, each anticipating the other's strategic moves. When tempers flared, Calix's commanding presence would settle his warriors, while Alara's measured diplomacy soothed human fears. During a rare moment alone, sequestered in a small strategic planning room, Alara finally voiced what had been troubling her. "They timed this perfectly. Someone wanted to sabotage our talks." Calix nodded, his amber eyes intense. "The old guard of my species fears change. They believe alliances weaken us." His chest plates rippled with what she now recognized as frustration. "They're wrong." "We need to prove it," Alara said, unconsciously moving closer to him. "Show that together we're stronger than apart." Their plan was audacious. A joint Terran-Norvathi response team, with Calix and Alara personally leading the diplomatic front. If they could contain the situation without bloodshed, it would demonstrate the potential of their alliance better than any formal agreement. As they prepared to board the response vessel, Calix pulled Alara aside. Without warning, he pressed his forehead gently against hers, a Norvathi gesture she recognized from her cultural briefings, usually reserved for clan members before battle. "Your courage honors me," he said softly, his chest plates shifting in that wave pattern she now knew indicated deep emotion. "Few of my own kind would stand with me against tradition." Alara found herself breathless, acutely aware of his proximity. "I believe in what we're doing, Calix, I believe in." She hesitated, then finished simply, "Us." His amber eyes searched hers. For a moment, she thought he might say more, but they were interrupted by the arrival of the tactical team. Hours later, their gambit succeeded. Through a combination of Norvathi combat prowess and human diplomatic finesse, they managed to isolate and capture the rogue faction's leaders without a single casualty. The crisis resolved, both Terran and Norvathi officials were forced to acknowledge the effectiveness of their cooperation. As they returned victorious, Alara found herself watching Calix command his troops, noticing how his movements flowed with practiced grace despite his imposing size. The respect his warriors showed him wasn't born of fear, but genuine admiration. When he caught her observing him, his chest plates rippled in that now familiar pattern of appreciation. But there was something new there too, a pulsing intensity at the edges that made her wonder if Norvathi could blush in their own way. Alara realized, with a mixture of exhilaration and trepidation, that what had begun as fascination with the alien was evolving into something far more complex, and far more dangerous for a diplomat whose job required objectivity. "Your cultural exchange proposal has been approved," Marcus announced, barely containing his excitement as he handed Alara the official documentation. "The Norvathi High Command actually praised its, how did they put it, bold vision for interspecies understanding." Alara accepted the tablet, trying to ignore the flutter in her stomach. The program she designed with Calix would pair human and Norvathi personnel for intensive one-on-one cultural immersion, starting with the two of them as a pilot case. "That's excellent news," she managed, keeping her voice professionally neutral despite the hammering of her heart. Later that evening, she prepared her quarters for Calix's visit, their first truly private meeting. The cultural exchange protocol called for sharing significant cultural artifacts and personal histories. Alara had selected music, artwork, and literature that she felt represented humanity's complexity. When her door chimed, she took a steadying breath before opening it. Calix ducked slightly to enter, his imposing height making her quarters seem suddenly smaller. He carried a metallic case embossed with Norvathi script. "These are my offering for our exchange," he explained, setting the case down carefully. "Battle poems from my ancestral line, star charts from our first explorations, and this." He removed a small object that resembled a crystal geode, its interior shifting with colors when he held it to the light. "A memory stone. It contains impressions of significant moments from my life." Alara's fingers brushed his as she accepted the stone, sending an unexpected warmth up her arm. "It's beautiful," she murmured, watching colors swirl within its depths. "Only those with emotional resonance can activate its deeper patterns," Calix explained, watching her intently. As they progressed through their cultural exchange, the formal boundaries between diplomat and commander gradually dissolved. Alara found herself laughing at Calix's bewildered reaction to Earth poetry, while he demonstrated Norvathi meditation techniques that involved synchronized breathing and precise movements. "Your shields," Alara noted during one such demonstration, "they move differently when you're completely relaxed." Calix nodded. "They're connected to our emotional and physical state. In complete vulnerability, they can partially retract." "Like now?" she asked, noticing how the edges of his chest plates had softened, revealing more of the iridescent skin beneath. "Yes," he admitted, his gaze holding hers. "I find myself unguarded in your presence, Alara." The use of her name in his harmonically layered voice sent a shiver through her. The room seemed suddenly charged with unspoken tension. "The memory stone," she said abruptly, needing distraction. "You said it responds to emotional resonance." Calix moved closer, taking the stone from her hands and placing it between them. "Place your hand beside mine," he instructed softly. When their fingers touched on the crystal's surface, it erupted with vivid colors and projected swirling patterns onto the walls around them. Scenes from Calix's life interwoven with impressions of her own memories. "This is impossible," Alara whispered. "How can it read my experiences?" "It doesn't," Calix said, his voice low. "It reads emotional parallels between us. The stone has recognized something I've suspected for weeks." His free hand rose hesitantly before tracing the outline of her jaw with surprising gentleness. "Our differences are profound, yet in the ways that matter most." Alara leaned into his touch, caution finally surrendering to desire. "We're remarkably similar," she finished for him. What followed was a discovery of differences that complemented rather than divided. His silver-blue skin against her brown, the fascinating texture of his chest plates beneath her exploring fingers, the unexpected sensitivity at the juncture where plates met skin. When his mouth finally found hers, the alienness of the kiss was overshadowed by its overwhelming rightness. Later, as they lay entwined, Alara traced the patterns on his narrow-laxed chest plates. "What happens now?" she murmured. Calix's amber eyes held concern despite their contentment. "We've entered territory no diplomatic protocol covers, Alara. There will be consequences." She nodded against his shoulder. "Worth it," she decided, "whatever comes next." The signing ceremony for the Terran-Norvathi Alliance Treaty should have been Alara's crowning achievement. Instead, as dignitaries from both species gathered in the Grand Hall, she found herself battling anxiety. Word of her relationship with Calix had spread, despite their attempts at discretion. "The Joint Commission requests your presence," Marcus informed her, his expression carefully neutral. "Both of you." Alara exchanged a glance with Calix across the room. His chest plates were arranged in their most formal configuration, but she could read the tension in the slight ridge along their edges. The Commission, 3 humans and 3 Norvathi, awaited them in a private chamber adjoining the hall. Admiral Chen, the human chairperson, spoke first. "Ambassador Reeves, Commander Vranthull, your personal involvement has created an unprecedented situation." Her tone was measured but not condemning. "Some view it as compromising, others as revolutionary." Drexnar, the eldest Norvathi representative, leaned forward. "In our history, warriors who formed bonds with other species were considered either visionaries or traitors. There is no middle ground." Alara's throat tightened. "If our relationship has damaged the treaty prospects—" "On the contrary," interrupted Commissioner Liang, tapping her tablet. "Since news of your liaison became known, applications for the cultural exchange program have increased 7-fold. What we're saying," Admiral Chen clarified, "is that while your relationship raises complicated questions, it also presents opportunities. The Alliance needs pioneers willing to navigate this new territory, not in secret but openly." Calix's chest plates shifted in surprise. "You're not separating us." "That would be counterproductive," Drexnar rumbled. "Instead, we're offering you both a new assignment, joint ambassadors to establish the first permanent mixed-species diplomatic corps." Outside the chamber, as the implications of this unexpected development sank in, Alara found herself laughing with relief and amazement. "They're using us as an experiment." "As flagship examples," Calix corrected, his chest plates rippling with amusement. "There's a difference." The treaty signing proceeded smoothly, with Alara and Calix standing together as representatives of a future neither species had envisioned before their meeting. When it came time for Calix to make his formal address, he deviated slightly from protocol by extending his hand to Alara, inviting her to stand beside him. "Today marks not just an alliance between our peoples," he announced, his harmonic voice carrying throughout the hall, "but a recognition that difference need not divide us. It can instead become our greatest strength." As applause filled the chamber, Alara felt Calix's chest plates vibrate subtly against her shoulder, a private communication of contentment that she'd learned to recognize in their weeks together. Later, as they stood on the observation deck watching shuttles depart with various dignitaries, Alara considered the journey ahead. "It won't be easy," she mused. "There will be resistance, misunderstandings." "Like when you couldn't stop staring at my thoracic shields," Calix teased, the memory now a favorite between them. "In my defense, they are rather spectacular," she replied, tracing a finger along the central plate that had first captured her attention. Calix caught her hand, pressing it fully against his chest. "They respond differently to you now," he said softly. "My shields recognize you as part of my being." Alara felt the steady rhythm beneath her palm, the subtle shift of plates that had once seemed so alien and now felt like coming home. "I never imagined my diplomatic career would take this particular turn." "Nor I my military one," Calix agreed, "but I've learned that the universe rarely follows expected patterns." His amber eyes held hers. "And that the most valuable discoveries often begin with simple curiosity." As the observation deck darkened to simulate night, The stars outside seemed to grow brighter. Ilara leaned against Calix's solid presence, no longer self-conscious about the differences in their physiology or concerned with who might see them together. "To new horizons," she whispered, feeling his chest plates shift in that special pattern that was meant only for her. "And to the differences that brought us here," Calix responded, his forehead touching hers in the gesture that had once been foreign but now felt as natural as breathing. Around them, the merged crew of humans and Norvathi moved with growing ease, already taking cues from the unlikely pair who had proven that understanding could transcend biology. That connection could form across the stars, beginning with nothing more than a curious glance and the courage to look beyond the surface.